It was a cold evening. The wind outside made the trees shake and the sky was turning dark. Inside a huge mansion, an old woman sat alone in her soft chair. Her name was Mrs. Eliza, and she was once a powerful businesswoman, a millionaire, who owned many hotels and companies. Now she lived alone in silence. The house was big, beautiful, and full of expensive things, but none of them brought her happiness. She had no husband. Her only son had died many years ago in a car accident. Since then, her world had changed. She had no one to talk to, no family to love. Only her assistant and house staff stayed with her, but they were just workers, not family. Every night, Eliza would watch the news or some old movies. It was her way to pass time and feel less lonely. That night was no different. She sat with a blanket on her lap, a cup of tea beside her, and the TV remote in her hand. Suddenly, as she flipped through channels, something made her stop. On the screen, a young man was being interviewed. He stood outside a small community center talking with reporters. He spoke gently and confidently. His eyes looked kind and full of hope. Eliza stared at the screen. Her hand stopped moving. Her tea got cold. Her heart began to beat faster. She leaned forward. Her eyes widened. Her lips parted. There was something about the boy's face. His eyes, his smile, even the way he moved his hands while speaking. It felt so familiar. She whispered to herself, "It can't be." She turned up the volume. The young man said his name was Arav, and he worked at the center helping poor children. He said he had grown up with a single mother and never knew much about his family. Eliza's eyes filled with tears. She stood up slowly, her hands shaking. Her heart was now racing. Her knees felt weak, but she kept staring at the screen. That voice, those eyes, that name, she whispered. "It's him. It's my grandson." 22 years ago, Eliza had lost contact with her grandson after her son's death. His wife had taken the child and disappeared. Eliza tried to find them, but after some time she gave up. She had thought they were gone forever, but now, out of nowhere, she saw him, her lost grandson, standing on a news channel, alive and grown up. She pressed the remote to pause the TV. The screen froze with his face. She stared at it like it was a dream. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I thought I'd never see you again," she whispered. "I missed everything. Your first steps, your school, your voice. I missed your whole life." She picked up her phone with trembling fingers and called her assistant. "Hello, ma'am. Is everything okay?" the assistant asked. Eliza's voice cracked as she spoke. "I just saw a boy on TV. His name is Arav. I think he's my grandson." There was silence on the other end. "I need you to find him," she said, her voice firm now. "Find out where that interview happened. I want to know where he is, who he is, and everything about him. Do it now." "Yes, ma'am, I will start right away," the assistant replied. Eliza dropped the phone and sat back in her chair. She covered her face with both hands. Her body shook with emotion. She had spent years feeling cold, rich, but empty. Now, after all that time, she finally had a reason to hope. But many questions filled her heart. Would he remember her? Would he hate her? Would he even believe her? She didn't know the answers. But one thing was clear. She had to see him. Outside, the wind howled louder. But inside, Eliza felt something warm inside her chest. A tiny light of love that had almost died. Now, that light had returned. She looked back at the TV screen, still frozen with Arav's face. She touched the screen gently and whispered, "I will find you, my child." She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in years, Eliza had a reason to wake up the next morning, not to count money, not to check stock prices, but to find the boy she had once lost and maybe to be a grandmother again. She lay in her soft bed, staring at the ceiling. Her heart was heavy, her mind full of memories she had tried to forget for years. The face of the young man on the TV kept coming back to her. Arav. Could it really be him, her grandson? She closed her eyes and went back to the past, a past that still hurt her deeply. 22 years ago, Eliza's only son, Rohit, was everything to her. He was kind, gentle, and full of life. He didn't care about money or power. Instead, he cared about people. He had fallen in love with a simple girl named Mira, who worked as a school teacher. Eliza didn't approve of Mira. She thought the girl was too simple, too poor, not the right match for a millionaire family. "You don't understand," Eliza had told her son. "She's not like us. You deserve someone better." But Rohit didn't listen. He married Mira anyway. Soon, they had a baby boy, little Arav. For a short time, there was peace. Eliza held the baby in her arms, and even though she was still upset with Mira, she loved her grandson deeply. But fate was cruel. One rainy night, Rohit died in a terrible car accident. He never came home again. Mira was heartbroken. She didn't want to stay in Eliza's mansion anymore. She blamed Eliza for not accepting her fully. One morning, without saying goodbye, Mira left the house with baby Arav and disappeared. Eliza tried to find her. She hired detectives, asked the police, and searched every place she could. But nothing worked. It was like they had vanished from the world. Eliza cried for days, then weeks, then years. Slowly, her tears dried, and her heart became cold. She stopped searching. She stopped hoping. She buried the pain deep inside her and focused only on her business. But every birthday, every holiday, every quiet evening, she thought about that baby boy. Is he safe? Does he even know I exist? Does he hate me because I didn't protect him? These questions followed her like shadows. Now, after all these years, that same little boy, her Arav, had appeared on a news channel, grown into a young man, and he wasn't living a rich life. He wasn't in a suit or a fancy house. He was standing outside a small building, helping poor children. This broke Eliza's heart even more. She wondered, did he struggle growing up? Did he ever go to school properly? Did he ever have enough? Food, clothes, and love. All the things she could have given him, but didn't. Eliza sat up in her bed and walked slowly to her desk. She opened a drawer and pulled out an old photo album. The pages were full of dust. She opened it and saw pictures of Rohit as a child, laughing, playing in the garden, holding Eliza's hand. Then came pictures of Rohit and Mira on their wedding day. Eliza's eyes paused. She had never accepted Mira, but now she realized how strong that woman must have been, raising a child alone, with no support. Next, she saw a small baby picture of Arav, taken just a few days after he was born. He was smiling in his father's arms. Eliza touched the photo gently and said, "I'm sorry, I should have tried harder to find you." Just then, her assistant knocked on the door. "Come in," Eliza said quietly. The assistant entered, holding a folder. "Ma'am, I found something. The news video was taken outside a community center called Seva Gar in the small town of Navgaon. That's where the boy, Arav, works." Eliza held the folder tightly. "Are you sure it's him?" she asked. "Not 100%, the assistant replied, "but everything matches. His name, his age, the city Mira once lived in. I believe it's him." Eliza closed her eyes. Her heart was racing again. After all these years, she was close. Closer than she had ever been. "I want to go there," she said firmly. "Book a car, I'll go tomorrow morning." "Should I call ahead?" the assistant asked. Eliza shook her head. "No, I don't want to scare him. I just want to see him just once. From far away, I need to be sure." The assistant nodded and left. Eliza stood by the window looking at the stars. Her chest was full of fear, but also hope. She had missed her chance once. She didn't want to miss it again, and deep in her heart, she made a silent promise. "If that's really my Arav, I will do whatever it takes to bring him back into my life." The next morning, Eliza woke up before sunrise. For years, her days had been slow and cold, but today felt different. There was energy in her body, like something inside her heart, had finally opened. She didn't care about breakfast, business calls, or meetings. All she could think about was Arav. Her assistant had prepared everything. A black car waited outside the mansion. The folder with all the information about the young man from the TV interview was resting beside her on the seat. His name, his workplace, and the location were all written clearly. Sevagar, Navgaon, a small town 2 hours away. Eliza didn't speak much on the way. She held the folder tightly and stared out the window. The trees passed by quickly, and the air outside grew warmer as they left the city. Her heart beat faster the closer they got. Inside the folder was a photo printed from the TV interview. Arav stood in front of a building, smiling as he spoke. To the reporter, there was something pure in his expression, something that touched her deeply. She whispered, "You look just like your father." Tears filled her eyes. All these years she had been surrounded by gold, diamonds, and property, but none of it gave her peace. Now, a boy working in a simple building, with no fancy clothes, no rich lifestyle, had brought her heart back to life. They reached the town just before noon. It was small, quiet, and full of simple people. Children played near the streets. Shopkeepers waved at one another. Life here was nothing like the luxury Eliza was used to. The car stopped near the gate of a large old building with a hand-painted sign, Sevagar, Home for All. The place didn't look rich. The walls were faded. The garden outside had dry patches, but still it felt warm, like a place full of heart. Eliza didn't want anyone to recognize her. She wore a plain cotton sari, no makeup, no jewelry. Just an old shawl on her shoulders, and a simple bag in her hand. "Wait here," she told her driver. "I want to go alone." She slowly stepped out of the car and walked toward the gate. Her legs trembled, not because of age, but because of emotion. She stood near a tree beside the building where she could see without being seen. After a few minutes, the door opened. A group of children came running out, laughing and chasing each other. And behind them, there he was, Arav. He walked out with a notebook in his hand, guiding the children back inside. He bent down to tie one boy's shoelace. Then he picked up a small girl who had fallen. His face was calm, gentle. Eliza's breath stopped. It was him. It had to be him. She grabbed the tree for support, her eyes locked on his every move. She couldn't look away. Every second felt like magic, like a second chance from life itself. She didn't speak. She didn't call his name. She just stood there, watching the boy who had been lost to her for over 2 decades. Arav turned around for a moment. He looked in her direction, but didn't notice her. Just an old woman near a tree. Eliza's heart sank. She wanted to scream his name. She wanted to run to him, hold him, tell him everything. But she was scared. What if he didn't believe her? What if he hated her for the past? What if he didn't want anything to do with her? She felt a storm of emotions. But then, something happened. A little boy ran outside the gate crying. He had fallen and scratched his knee. Arav rushed to him, picked him up, and sat on a bench. He gently wiped the boy's wound and started singing a soft lullaby. Eliza gasped. That lullaby. It was the same one her son used to sing when he was small. Tears rolled down her cheeks, even without knowing his family, without remembering her. Arav had carried a piece of them inside him. She covered her mouth with her hand. Her legs felt weak again. She leaned against the tree, sobbing quietly. After a few minutes, she turned and walked back to the car. Her heart was full. She had seen him. He was alive. He was kind. He was everything she had hoped for, and more. When she sat back in the... Her assistant asked, "Did you see him, ma'am?" Eliza nodded slowly. "Yes, I saw him," she whispered. "And now, I have to find the courage to speak to him." Eliza could not forget what she saw. The moment she returned home from Navgaon, her heart was no longer the same. She had lived for money, power, and silence. But now, she had seen her grandson. She had watched him smile, laugh, and care for children, and he didn't even know she existed. That night she sat in her study for hours, thinking. Her assistant stood nearby, waiting for instructions. "Should we contact him now?" the assistant asked softly. Eliza shook her head. "No, I don't want to scare him. I want to go back. Tomorrow. And this time, I want to speak to him." The next morning she dressed simply again. No one would know she was a millionaire. She wore the same cotton sari and shawl. This time she carried something in her handbag, an old photo of baby Arav in his father's arms. When she arrived at Sevagar, she felt nervous for the first time in years. She stood near the gate, watching the children play. Then she saw him, Arav. He was planting flowers in the garden with two little boys. His hands were covered in mud, but he smiled the whole time. He looked peaceful, kind, full of life. Eliza took a deep breath and walked slowly toward him. "Excuse me," she said gently. Arav looked up. "Yes, ma'am. Can I help you?" His voice was calm. He smiled, not knowing who stood in front of him. I saw you on TV a few days ago," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "I came to meet you." Arav stood up and wiped his hands on a towel. "Oh, that interview? Yes, they came to talk about our work here. Are you from the city?" Eliza nodded. "Yes, my name is Eliza." Arav didn't react. The name meant nothing to him. "I used to know someone very close to you," she added. He looked confused. "You knew my mother?" She paused, then nodded. "Yes. Her name was Mira, right?" Arav's smile faded. "Yes. But she passed away when I was 16. Cancer. We struggled a lot, back then." Eliza's eyes filled with tears. She felt like her heart was breaking again. "I'm so sorry to hear that," she whispered. "I tried to find you both a long time ago." Arav looked at her curiously. "Why would you try? To find us?" Eliza slowly reached into her bag and pulled out the old photograph. She handed it to him. "Because you're not just a boy I saw on TV. You're my grandson." Arav stared at the photo. His hands trembled as he looked at the baby in the picture. His father, the man he had only seen in a few photos, was holding him, and beside them stood a younger version of the woman now in front of him. He looked up at her. "What? What are you saying?" Eliza stepped closer, tears in her eyes. "I'm your grandmother, Arav. Your father, Rohit, was my son." Silence fell between them. Arav looked at her for a long time. His eyes searched her face as if trying to remember something. "But why didn't you ever come for us?" he asked. His voice was soft, but it carried pain. "Why did you let my mother suffer all those years?" Eliza swallowed hard. This was the moment she feared most. "I tried," she said, her voice breaking. "But Mira, she took you and disappeared after your father died. I searched everywhere, for years, but I couldn't find you." Arav looked down at the photo, again. His heart was full of questions, pain, and confusion. "I grew up thinking I had no family," he whispered. "My mother never spoke much about my father's side. She always looked hurt when I asked." Eliza's eyes were wet. "That was my fault. I was proud, angry. I didn't accept her at first, and I lost everything because of it. I lost my son, then I lost you." She held out her hands gently. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "I just wanted to see you, just once, to tell you the truth, to say, I'm sorry." Arav didn't speak. He looked at her again, at her tired eyes, her shaking hands, and the pain in her voice. He saw something real, something honest. For a moment he didn't see a rich, powerful woman. He saw someone lonely, regretful, human. He finally said, "I don't know how to feel right now. It's a lot." Eliza nodded. "Take your time. I'll come back tomorrow. Only if you want." She turned to leave, slowly walking back toward the gate. "But then," Arav called out. "Wait." She stopped. He walked toward her and said softly, Would you like to come inside? We're having lunch. The kids will love to meet someone new. Eliza smiled through her tears. It was not full forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. And sometimes, that's all a broken heart needs. Eliza followed Arav inside the Sevagar building. Her heart was heavy with emotions, but his invitation had brought a small light of hope. She had imagined meeting her grandson so many times in her dreams. But this was real. The room they entered was simple, no marble floors, no chandeliers, no gold frames on the walls. But it had something better: laughter, love, and life. Children sat on floor mats around low tables. Some were already eating. Others ran around happily. Volunteers carried plates of food, rice, dal, and a few vegetables. Arav turned to her. Would you be okay sitting with the kids? Eliza smiled. Of course, I'd love that. He guided her to a corner where 3 small children sat. As she sat down slowly, one of them, a girl with big brown eyes, looked at her curiously and said, Are you Arav Bhaya's daddy? Arav froze for a second. Eliza chuckled softly. Yeah, something like that. The children giggled and offered her some food from their plate. She had eaten in the finest restaurants in the world, but that day, the simple dal and rice in a tin plate tasted better than any 5-star meal. She watched Arav as he moved around, checking on each child, making sure no one was left hungry. He smiled at everyone, talked to them like a big brother. There was kindness in everything he did. Eliza's eyes followed him with wonder. This is the boy I had searched for and lost. Now here he is, feeding others while he himself had no one. When lunch ended, Arav sat beside her. I didn't expect you to sit with the kids, he said. She smiled. They reminded me of my son. He used to laugh like that when he was small. Arav stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then he asked, Tell me about him. About my father. Eliza's fingers gently touched her shawl. She looked away, remembering a younger version of her son, Rohit. Your father was strong, stubborn, and full of dreams, she began. He didn't care about money like I did. He loved art, music, and people. She paused, then added, When he met your mother, I didn't approve. I thought she wasn't from our level. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. Arav listened silently. I said things I shouldn't have. I hurt them both. After he died in an accident, she left. I tried to find her, but she was gone. And with her, you? Tears formed in her eyes again. I don't want to give excuses, I just want you to know the truth. Arav looked down at his hands. My mother. She never said anything bad about you, he said softly. She only said that the past was painful, and she didn't want me to grow up with that pain. Eliza looked surprised. She protected me, even after everything I did? Arav nodded. She said people change, and hearts can heal if we allow them. There was silence for a moment. Then Eliza took something out of her bag, a small silver bracelet. This belonged to your father, she said. He wore when he was your age. I've kept it all these years. It was the only thing I had left of him. Arav took the bracelet carefully. His fingers traced the initials carved on it. R.M. Rohit Malhotra. He swallowed hard. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Eliza smiled gently. You don't need to say anything. Just keep it. As a part of him. And now a part of you. They sat together, both lost in memories they never shared. Outside, the sky was turning orange with the setting sun. Arav finally spoke. You came, here not knowing how I'd react. That takes courage. Eliza looked at him. I came here with nothing to lose, but maybe something to find. He nodded. And what did you find? She smiled warmly. Hope and maybe a grandson. Arav gave a small smile. It was still a little unsure, a little guarded, but it was real. Before leaving, Eliza said, Can I come again tomorrow? Not as a guest, but as family? Arav looked at her, really looked at her. For a moment, he saw past the expensive life she once lived. He saw a woman who had made mistakes, but now stood in front of him with open hands. "Okay," he said. "Come tomorrow." As she walked back to her car, Eliza felt something she hadn't felt in years. Eliza began visiting Sevagar every day. Each morning she came in her simple clothes, carrying fresh fruits, sweets, and books for the children. The kids started calling her Dadiama, and she smiled every time she heard it. For the first time in 20 years, her life felt full. She sat with the children, told them bedtime stories, and helped them with schoolwork. But most importantly, she spent time with Arav. He was still careful around her, still carrying the weight of the past, but he didn't stop her. He let her be part of his world, one small step at a time. One evening, as they sat together under the big tree in the yard, Arav asked her, "Why didn't you ever remarry or adopt someone else after losing everyone?" Eliza looked up at the sky. "Because no one else could fill the space your father left. And later, the space you left." Arav said nothing, but in his silence there was something soft, something forgiving. Just when everything was starting to heal, something unexpected happened. Arav had gone out for a meeting in the city. While he was gone, Eliza sat with the children in the courtyard. She laughed as one of the kids braided her hair with flowers. That's when a woman named Anita, one of the senior volunteers, came and sat beside her. Anita had been with the orphanage for over 10 years. She looked at Eliza and said gently, "You've changed him, you know. Arav. He's different now. Happier." Eliza smiled. "I only showed him the truth. The rest, he's done himself." Anita nodded but seemed thoughtful. Then she added quietly, "But there's something I've never told him, something about his past." Eliza turned sharply. "What do you mean?" Anita looked uneasy. "Years ago, just after his mother died, a man came here. He said he knew Arav's family. He asked to take him away, said he had money and power. But the man seemed angry, cold." Eliza's heart started beating fast. "What was his name?" she asked. Anita thought for a second. "I don't remember exactly. Something like Mr. Singh or Mr. Sinha. He showed papers, but Arav's mother had left instructions not to send him with anyone unless it was under court orders." Eliza's face turned pale. She suddenly stood up and walked away quietly. In her car, she called her assistant. "Check if my lawyer, Mr. Rajiv Sinha, visited an orphanage 6 years ago. Find every detail." An hour later, the assistant called back. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "Mr. Sinha did go to Sevagar 6 years ago. You had asked him to search for your grandson, but he never told you he found anything." Eliza's hand trembled. "He found Arav, and he didn't tell me." The assistant replied, "According to his file, he said the child didn't want to leave. He thought it was better not to inform you. He believed it would bring you pain." Eliza couldn't believe it. Arav had been found 6 years ago. All those years, she had been living alone, thinking her grandson was lost, and the man she trusted, her own lawyer, had kept the truth hidden. The next day, she returned to the orphanage with a storm in her heart. She waited for Arav in the garden. When he arrived, she looked at him with pain in her eyes. "Arav," she said, "I have to tell you something." He looked concerned. "What happened?" She took a deep breath. "My lawyer found you 6 years ago, but he never told me. He went behind my back. He thought you were better off without me." Arav's face changed. "What?" Eliza nodded. "I only found out yesterday. I trusted him with everything, and he lied. You were here. You were alive. And I could have been in your life all this time." Arav sat down slowly. His hands gripped the bench. 6 years, he whispered. "I struggled. I begged for help. We barely had food some months. And you were out there, searching for me. And someone stopped it." Eliza's voice shook. "I'm so sorry, Arav. I would have come running if I had known." He looked at her with red eyes. "Why do people think they can decide what's best for others? That lawyer, he robbed both of us." Eliza reached for his hand. "I promise you, I will make this right." He didn't pull his hand away, but he also didn't say anything. That night, as Eliza returned home, she made a decision. She would confront her lawyer. But more than that, she would protect Arav. No one would keep them apart again. The past had taken enough. Now, it was time to fight for the future. Arav couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about what Eliza had told him, that her lawyer had found him years ago but chose not to inform her. 6 years of pain, 6 years of loneliness, and all of it could have ended long ago. Now the truth was out, but it had left a storm inside him. Eliza, too, was restless. Early the next morning, she stood in her lawyer's office, her face calm but her voice cold. "You betrayed me, Rajiv," she said. The man, Mr. Sinha, shifted uncomfortably behind his desk. "I was protecting you, ma'am," he said. "That boy, he was growing up in poverty. I thought it would bring you pain to see him like that." "You didn't protect me," she replied. "You robbed me of the chance to know my grandson. You destroyed years of his life, and mine." She handed him a document. "You're fired, and the authorities will deal with what you did." Mr. Sinha's face turned pale. By noon, Eliza's assistant made sure that legal action was started. She didn't care about money or reputation. She only cared about one thing now: Arav. Later that evening, she returned to Sevagar. Arav was sitting with the children, helping them with homework. He looked tired. His eyes were heavy, but when he saw Eliza, he stood up quietly. "I dealt with Mr. Sinha," she said. "He won't hurt us again." Arav nodded. He was still trying to process everything. "I don't know how to feel," he said. "I'm angry, but I'm also tired of being angry." Eliza stepped closer. "Let me carry your pain now, Arav. Just for a while." He looked into her eyes, the eyes of an old woman who had once made mistakes, but who now stood in front of him with nothing but love. "Why me?" he whispered. "You're rich. You could have anyone." She gently placed her hand on his. "Because you're not just anyone, you're my grandson, the only family I have left, and I don't want to spend one more day without you in my life." There was a long pause. Then Arav spoke again. "I used to dream of a grandmother. I imagined her face sometimes. I thought maybe she was out there watching over me." Tears filled Eliza's eyes. "I was watching," she whispered, "but I didn't know where to look." In that moment, something deep and silent passed between them, something only broken hearts can understand. Then, a small voice interrupted. "Dadi Amma, are you crying?" It was the little girl who had asked about her in part 5. Eliza wiped her eyes and smiled. "No, sweetie, I'm just very happy." Arav laughed a little. "She always cries when she's happy now." The girl tilted her head. "Will you come tomorrow again?" Eliza looked at Arav. He nodded. "Yes, I'll come every day," she said, "because now this is my home too." That weekend, Eliza held a special meeting with the board of her company. She shocked everyone when she announced she was donating a large part of her fortune to Sevagar and other shelters across the country. "I spent my whole life collecting money," she said, "but I forgot to collect love. Now it's time to give back." Arav was invited to speak. He stood in front of the crowd, nervous but strong. "I used to think I was unlucky," he began, "or forgotten. But now I know. Sometimes people make mistakes and sometimes they try to fix them." He paused and smiled. "I forgive the past, because today I have a grandmother, a name, a future." The crowd clapped. Many had tears in their eyes. A few months later, Eliza moved into a smaller house near the orphanage. She didn't want a mansion anymore. Arav helped her settle in. They cooked together. He taught her how to use a mobile phone. She told him stories of his father, stories he had never heard before. The bond between them grew stronger each day. On Arav's birthday, Eliza surprised him. She handed him an envelope. He opened it. It was a legal adoption paper. "I know you're grown now," she said, "but I want to make it official. I want the world to know you are mine." Arav hugged her tightly. You never needed paper for that, he whispered. You already live in my heart. That night under the stars, they sat outside, just the two of them. Do you ever regret anything? Arav asked. Eliza thought for a moment. Yes, I regret the time we lost. But I don't regret this moment, and I will never waste another day again. They looked at the sky, the same sky that once separated them. Now it held their future. Not everything broken stays broken. Sometimes, if love is strong enough, it finds its way back home. And this time, it stayed.